My name is Mackie, and welcome back to another episode of Death of a Team. It is episode 4, and today we are going to Europe to talk about the mighty Rogue. Now, Rogue is a really interesting case to talk about, and I wanted to thank one person in particular for actually inspired me to do this whole thing. This is Clement Chochat, and he did this report on the 6th day of the first month of this year, 2026. I'm recording this on the 20th, so it's like 2 weeks ago this thing is coming out. And this is, of course, talking about the LEC champions, the former LEC champions of Rogue, interviewing some of the players, of course, because, of course, some of the players that were there are now officially Na'Vi players, which they got bought out by Navi in later last year. And it was a great interview, of course. I'm not going to go dive in too deep, of course. It's talking about Hansama joining and then winning the whole thing and then the fall off, the partnership. Those are all things that I'm going to be talking about in depth on this thing. But if you really wanted to get more details, I'll link the description below. It was a great interview and all kinds of stuff. And just look at them. We'll get to all of this and the pain and the misery and some stats later on. But now it is time for us to talk about the mighty Rogue Nation. Now, let's start on May 3rd, 2016. Just a couple of months before Leicester City pulled off the magical winning the Premier League and all kinds of stuff. Yes, that was the year. Rec Global decided that they wanted to form a team that can compete in League of Legends. 2016 was the perfect year to do so. And since we're in the year of like esports being like big, large, and in charge, of course, they decided that Rogue is the perfect time. Now, they didn't start competing until 2018, but they have persons to take care of the squad. They got Flynn and Anna decided to join for GM and manager director and general counsel, with Otto being involved in player development. This is going to be the last time you're going to hear me doing GMing and all that kind of stuff in the LEC, because who cares about GMing in League of Legends anyways. Now, on February 27th, actually the 24th to the 27th of supposed to be 2018, Freddy122 became the head coach and Edward the assistant coach of the Rogue team. And the former, I'm going to tell you one thing about the former. The former is going to be involved in a lot of good things and a lot of horrible things. Let's just say that the only time I'm going to mention Freddy122 being like left out is like when the whole thing ended. But he has been there since probably the entire beginning. From the 2019 onwards to even the Na'Vi days, the early Na'Vi days. So yeah, loyalty to the end, I guess, which is not as great in League of Legends these days, or any esports these days. But unfortunately, 2019 is not the year they get rewarded, not as yet. This is the LEC 2019 spring lineup. Profit, Kikis, former G2 great Kikis, by the way, Sencox, Heck, and Wadded, another G2 great, of course, from the 2017 team that won LEC way back when. Unfortunately, it did not work out. They finished 2-16 and finished last. And keeping in mind that this was the LEC that had the runners-up of the LEC at that time, and a probable super team in Misfits, and have one of the greatest ever teams that ever graced the Western region in G2. So this is just year one of the LEC. And by the way, this is also year one of the LEC as a whole. This was LEC 1.0. And Rogue are coming in feeling like, okay, they may not be good, but at least they can compete something. But 2 wins in 16 games, like granted, of course, it's best of one. And you all know what best of ones are right now. They're kind of like, why are they mattered? Why they mattered? But 2-16 is just really bad luck. But instead of just like, keeping the whole squad and develop, they realized that, yeah, in order for us to compete, we just have to like cut a few people off, and decided to farm some homegrown talent. And this is, of course, where the homegrown talent comes in. Finn and Vander on February 12th decided to join for Rogue Esports Club. Late, of course, this team will turn on to be later AGO Rogue, who played in the Polish Ultraliga in the ERLs, which is the lower tier of the LEC. It's where most of the teams came from and most of the talent came from. So Rogue decided, you know what? Let's just farm our talent, build them up, see where it can go from here. Now, on May 2nd to the 16th of 2018, that year, should write down the year, but who cares at this point? Kikis, Sincox, and Walden decided to leave. And then Selfie decided to join. But oh no, I don't think Selfie gonna last that long because from the 27th to the 29th, 3 players are about to change everything about Rogue. Actually, the one of them is not gonna do anything much. Two of them oh, 2 of them is going to absolutely let it rip. Like the movie The Rip. By the way, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck did an incredible movie. I kind of love the movie, of course. It has some pretty suspenseful things, all kind of stuff. I didn't realize it was a true story, of course. I didn't realize it was a real life thing, but it was a fantastic movie. If you have the Netflix account and the time, you go watch the movie. That does not mean talk about movies. I'm talking about Rogue. Inspired, Larson and Woolite joined from the academy. Unfortunately for Selfie, he decided to leave. Sorry, you've been kicked off the island just like Survivor. And they got investors. A lot of investors, ladies and gentlemen. Tanny, a Grammy-winning producer, and Nicky Romero. Yes, Dutch DJ or Nicky Romero, because I am a sucker for EDM music. I am a gigantic sucker of EDM music. Drum and bass, techno, dubstep, all this kind of stuff. I'm your EDM guy. Again, not talking about music, but I just wanted to know that I have a little taste of it. They decided to join Red Global and become bigger investments. Michael O'Deal decided to join as Chief Gaming Officer, as a CGO. What the hell is that? Oh, well, these esports then. 2019 summer, Finn, Inspire, Larson, Woolite, Vander, who also came from the academy. Okay, I didn't mention that. This, of course, it takes place on February 12th. And this team was amazing. Well, actually not. But they did finish 7-11, which is better than 2-16. And they did finish 5th, of course. Inspired was named Rookie of the Split for that particular thing. And he was impressive. It was kind of like the beginning of this incredible, dominant, and wily, incredible Polish player, of course. But that is for later on. In the playoffs, their very first playoffs ever, they went on to beat Splice, who went on to qualify Worlds. But not only beat Splice, ladies and gentlemen, they absolutely sweep them. Sweep them off the floor by 3-0. And at the time, it was the biggest upset of any LEC, of course, because it was the least amount of wins a team has in winning a playoff series. I mean, they and Vitality are the only 2 teams to qualify in the playoffs, despite the fact have losing records. That's how crazy the LEC is. And by the way, G2 and Fnatic were like heads and toes above everybody else. Like they and the rest of them are like scrapping them off. Now, unfortunately for them, they went on to lose to Schalke 04, and one player in particular was on Schalke 04, who was on the team, was named Oda Wame. You're going to hear about him later on. It's called foreshadowing in literally terms. Now, October 2nd to November 14th, Rudy Gobert, former basketball player, of course, and Landon Collins, a NFL player for the Washington Commanders, became bigger investments. So, yeah, you got a DJer, a producer, a basketball player, and a Collins from the NFL, because esports, baby, we are going to live like kings. November 15, HQ decided to switch roles and become a support. And then they brought the money load in the ball lane. Say hello to the Star Warrior French Dynamite in Hans frickin' Sama, who came from the Incredible Misfits team that 2 years ago nearly beat T1. And that was that. that was absolutely that. And they formed probably the best bot duo ever. Well, unfortunately, HJQ sadly cannot even make the ball lane better, but he will be part of it. He will be part of it. Oh, here's, Taylor Fritz, a tennis player from the U.S., decided to invest our team in December 12th. So, Happy New Year, everybody. You got loads of investment, a good team, a good foundation. I think Rogue is going to do well in 2020. Oh, what's that? COVID-19 exists? Well, okay, then Yeah, we're going to be staying at home then, but we are still going to cook this year. We got Finn, we got Inspired, we got Larson, we got Hans Summers, we got Vander, and we went 9-9, which is mid. But sixth place and make the playoffs. Great job. They beat Misfits. Hooray! But lost to Origin. Boo. Okay, so not the greatest, but hey, listen, we went from 2 wins to 7 wins to 9 wins, and we kept the lineup. So maybe we have a shot of actually competing for a championship. And lo and behold, you thinking 9 wins is impressive? Try 13. Yeah, 2 wins from the first year, 2019, to 13 within a single year. Holy cow, what a freaking turnaround. Top of the LEC regular season. The entire Rogue roster grabbed second team All Pros. Larson grabbed 6 MVPs awards. This Rogue team was unbelievably amazing. But can they handle it in the playoffs, though? Well, unfortunately, they cannot even beat Fnatic because, yeah, as I said, Fnatic and G2 were like top dogs from like 2018 to 2020, I guess. Or you can say 2021, but you can say 2020. That was in their peak years, of course. Then they sweep aside Mad Lions. We'll put a pin on them later because they'll be involved in mostly in the Rift, but mostly out of the Rift, of course. So put a pin on that, okay? Then they give the mighty G2 roster, which at the time still hosts the 5 best players in the world, your Wonder, your Yankos, your Caps, your Mickey X, and of course Perks. They gave them everything. They went 5 games against this team and unfortunately lost. But listen. To give the former MSI champions and world's finalists 5 games for a team that only have 2 wins last year, it's just like, wow. Uh, that is impressive. I mean, all right. All right, Rogue. All right, Rogue. I like this team. I like the investment. I like the whole continuity of the squad. Let's just keep the squad as it is, build for next year, and maybe, just maybe, we have a chance. Hello? Oh, hello? Oh, we qualify for Worlds. Turns out that finishing in the top 3 at the time in the LEC, of course, guarantees you to qualify for Worlds, their first international event ever. And they were crap. It doesn't help that you were in a group with the soon-to-be champions Damwon Gaming, a top dog in China in JDG, and a really good PSG talent at the time were like heads and toes above the PCS. So yeah, it was rough. And unfortunately, changes have to be made. Finn and Vander decided to leave. And then, as I mentioned, of course, remember I told you about a Schalke? Remember I told you about the miracle of Schalke, of course, back in 2020 when they would come from dead last to even make the playoffs? Well, Oldawame decided to join in. And then we decided to let's add Trimby in there. So we got an absolute stack lineup. All Academy players come from the Academy, of course. Well, exception to Hans Summer, who was just bought in. Not an Academy player, but still. Homegrown players and a talented veteran. My goodness of gracious. Just look at this lineup. Just look at this lineup. Oldawame, Inspire, Larson, Hans Summer, and Trimby. If listen, this is 2026. This is 5 years that this squad has put in. And you can see the success that these 5 players went on to have in their careers inside and outside of the Rift, of course. I'm not going to tell you as much. I will, tell that afterwards. But back then, you look at this squad and say, no, this team is pretty good, but how good are they? Well, 14 wins. Ah, yeah. 14-4 record. Second place behind the mighty G2, which, by the way, decided to have Reckless because why not? G2 can do whatever they want. They lost to Mad Lions. Again, put a pin on that. But decided to absolutely destroy the lower bracket. Well, actually semi-destroy because, of course, by their, their standings in the regular season and their laws, they decided to put in the lower tiers of the bracket. But you know what? Lower bracket indeed. They decided they beat Schalke's old team, actually Odawame's old team, to Schalke 04. And now everybody must be assumed that G2 is going to beat Rogue. At the time, ladies and gentlemen, this was the G2 Fnatic make it to every single finals, dominate the LEC, making the LEC as boring as many people are. Like I watched the LEC at that time. It was 2021. I was in the pandemic. I was at my dad's work watching the LEC at the time. I was thinking to myself that this is a G2, final, a G2 Fnatic final, barring anything. And even then, G2 is going to win the LEC because, of course, despite the failings they're going to have later on in their year, it's still G2 for God's sakes. It's still the best ball laner ever in Reckless and Mickey S. They still have Caps. They still have Jankos and Wonder. And they have the aura of G2. They got the G2 freaking aura that feels like any team, no matter what, is going to lose to them. So it almost feels like, yeah, Rogue are pretty much against it. There is no way that Rogue are going to beat the mighty, dominant Oh my God, they beat them! Rogue beat G2. Rogue beat G2. It was an absolute upset, and they absolutely played their best potential. Now, let me just tell you about this playstyle about Rogue, of course, at the time. Rogue are the most methodical, clean-cut team, a surgeon team, if you want to call it. They're methodical, they were clean, they were disciplined, they were all that kind of stuff. And there is one weakness, and I want to talk about Rogue, of course, during the season. But let me just take stock of why this victory was significant. This was the first time that G2 have not make it to LEC final in their history. They have been to every LEC final since their very first year. And couple that with Fnatic's loss, of course, it is the first time since, let's just say, the early years of the LEC at that time, or the EU LCS, since Alliance way back when, that we will have a champion not named G2 nor Fnatic. It was an historical day. It was an historical day for League of Legends fans, an historical day for LEC, because now we get to see fresh, new blood pumping in the veins of the LEC like we needed it. It's not like G2 and Fnatic are bad anyways, but it's just like the LEC needs something different, and different they got. And on April 11, 2021, we finally get it in a Rogue Man Lions final. I know it's I know it's not what many G2 Fnatic fans want, and pretty much viewership pretty much says the story, but hey, listen, suck a bib, of course, and just enjoy the final, okay? And the finals were absolutely memorable. I remember this final so cleanly well. Rogue were absolutely brilliant. Brilliant when they won 2 games in a row. They were absolutely dominant. They were clean. They were looking great, and they were about to do it. Finally, after 2 years of being suckish, of being horrible, of having academy players and doing everything I can, this is literally the reward for all their sacrifice and their time in the scrims and the coaching and all this kind of stuff, and they are about to win their first LEC. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no. Oh, sweet no. Yeah, about that. I told you about the Rogue weakness, of course. While they were the most methodical, clean-cut team of all of LEC teams at the time, their weakness is pretty much simple. Do you order a pizza, by the way, and you heard the phrase, of course, if your pizza is not delivered within 30 minutes or less, the pizza is free? Well, that's probably the same thing as Rogue. If Rogue does not deliver the victory within 30 minutes or less, then they collapsed. And Rogue Time was the biggest meme around LEC circles at the time. Now, of course, this pretty much, replied to like regular season game and all kinds of stuff. But in the playoffs, they were incredible, of course. They beat G2, they were up 2-0 in the finals, and then every single thing collapsed the moment that Armit, the top laner of Mad Lions at the time, put up the fingers and saying 3-2 in favor of Mad Lions. And at the time, there were never a reverse sweep in any LEC finals. And Mad Lions were the ones to be the first team to ever done it. In fact, they're the only team in the LEC history to do it twice. BDS, of course, back in 2023, when nobody gave Mad Lions a chance to even win the LEC at the time. Because everybody was thinking, oh, Man Lions are going to lose to G2 and then just qualify for MSI like the back of their pill and then surprise everybody by winning the whole thing. But that was 2023. This was 2021, and nobody was expecting Man Lions to do anything. Nobody was expecting Elioya and Humanoid and Arma to even win the whole thing. And then, holy cow, they did it. They reverse sweep Rogue. Armin was the MVP, of course, including an incredible Gnar play, of course, and I still picture that picture. I mean, Dragos was calling the game, of course. I think Cajol was part of the broadcast at the time, and that was a great Cajol, of course. Pre-loss Ratatonis, bald Cajol. And my God, for Rogue to lose the finals like this, and by the way, this is Oldawami's first final ever. After so many teams and so many years, so many good teams, he's finally made it to an LEC final, a regional final in any case. And for this to happen, I am not sure that any team, let alone an esports team, can recover from that. But you know what? Praise be Rogue. They tried their damnest, of course. They went 13-5, of course. They got coaching team of the year with Freddie 1-2 and a new manager, of course, Bloom again at the helm. They will have an MVP performance by Inspired. And by the way, these statistics will come from Oracle Elixir, of course, another statistician. I want to use guildgold.gg, but I decided, let's just use another statistician because I don't want to get the same old things and I don't want to be mad. 5.3 KDA, third in gold difference at 10 minutes, third in XP difference at 10 minutes, and third in earned gold per minute. This guy was an absolute giga chad. He went from Rookie of the Year in 2019 to 2019. 2019. Let me just check my notes. Yes, 2019. Rookie of the Year in 2019 to the first of many MVP awards. Sadly, not for Rogue, by the way, but the first of many MVP awards in 2021. What an incredible improvement by him, and what an incredible improvement by Rogue. And also, first team honors for him as well, with Odo and Han Summers being the second team. So, okay. Rogue, I know what happened in spring finals was horrible and bad, and it leaves you a bad taste in your mouth. But you have a chance to redeem yourselves, okay? You have a chance to redeem yourselves in the summer finals. Like, you beat Misfits, of course, to qualify for Worlds in 2021 in Iceland, which is great, of course. And that Misfits team is going to get their own video later on down the road. Stay tuned for that. But unfortunately, you just got crushed by Man Lions 3-0 and Fnatic. Okay, let me just a little quick thing about Fnatic. That Fnatic team was coached by Yamato Cannon, and by the way, they beat G2, denying G2 their first ever Worlds appearance ever, which is like shocking to so many G2 fans, of course, because they used to winning Worlds, they used to be at Worlds and win LEC titles, and the only year they did not win LEC or anything like that is just miss Worlds. So turn out Reckless was the problem then. All right, cool. This is what happens when you rest on your laurels, G2. This is what happens when you rest on your laurels. Just like that. You just lost to a Adam Whippo upset team. Who, by the way, Fnatic had all the problems, of course, before Worlds with the whole upset situation and the Adam situation that never even gone away. The beef is pretty much dead, but the scar is just so badly that Fnatic never recovered from that. Never. So, Rogue qualified for Worlds. Great. And now they're about to get crapped on because they have the FPX team, of course, that won 2019. That one Gaming, who won the Worlds before. And 2021 LCS champion C9. Oh boy, they're about to get crap on. They beat C9, lose to FPX and DK, which is, alright, expected. But remember I told you about the FPX collapse in my last video, the Death of a Team FPX video, which, by the way, please watch it. To all my 52 subscribers, thank you all. We're going to take it from the Rogue's perspective. And FPX choke on their bone. In fact, they choked so hard that Reggie Miller versus the Knicks would have been more catastrophic than this. They imploded. And Cloud9 and Rogue beat them, which sets up a massive match. Europe versus NA to see who will grab a quarterfinal spot. Yeah, the team will go on to lose to Gen G, but who cares? This is for pride, ladies and gentlemen. This is for an opportunity of a lifetime. I mean, there's no way that Perkz, a former LEC great, come to LCS and actually beat a European team. Oh, wait, he did beat a European team and eliminate Rogue from Worlds. Magnificent. So, unfortunately, the repercussions were huge. Inspired and Hansama leaving, ladder to go to G2. The former went to North America and do incredible stuff with Evil Geniuses and went on to Fly Quest. And now, as of this recording, he's a Lion player. So there's that. Malrang and Comp deciding to join. Yes, crazy jungler Malrang is joining the team. And Comp, who's fine, but pretty much not good. So, alright then. CL decided to join as assistant coach. Now, why did I put CL in this? Of course, because he is the coach of Vivo Kien Stars, of course, the team that went the Worlds last year, and of course, beat the brakes of 100 Thieves. So there's that, of course. The 2022 spring lineup, of course, bring you Oldawame, Malrang, Larson, Comp, and Trimby. Solid, decent lineup, but let's be honest, G2 are retooling, Fnatic are kind of get their crap together, and now Mad Lions are not the top dog in the LEC. It's going to take a lot to even overcome them. They finished 14-4 in the regular season. Great. And in their and they made to the second final after beating Misfits and Fnatic in both close 3-2 series. And they did it on the back of Coach of the Split honors again, and first team All Pros in Odo and Malrang, second in Comp and Trimmy, and Larson being third team. Now, if you are Rogue, ladies and gentlemen, you are facing off against a G2 team that have the entire world collapse on them, of course, not making the world, rebuilding the whole squad with rookies and all kinds of stuff. This should be easy, right? Right? And then you realize this is still G2. This is still G2, and even on a horrible bad day, they can still sweep you down hard. 3-0 in the finals, and it was not even close. So Rogue has to lick their wounds, of course, and decided to not change the lineup. Great. But realizing that, hey, guys, listen, chasing regular season titles is great and all, but we have to make sure that we can be fully healed and get ready for the real playoffs. The playoffs and winning the LEC, it all matters. It all matters. Not the regular season title, not being first place and all kind of stuff, but trying to win the LEC. And, by the way, the LEC finals at the time were taking place in Malmo, Sweden, Larson's hometown. So there was added extra motivation for Rogue to actually win an LEC title. So I decided to ease up the gas, go 11-7 in third place. Comp gets second team odds. Oldawame get third team odds. And on they went to another playoff appearance. And this will be a common theme for Rogue, of course, throughout the entire season, throughout the entire era of Rogue, post 2019 spring, of course. This will be a theme for Rogue, of course. But this might be the last frontier and the only glorious frontier. This is, I think, you can say that 2021 was the peak Rogue years, and they will never get this high ever again. I'll explain to you why, of course. So in the playoffs, Rogue beat Mad Lions 3-2 to qualify for Worlds in NA, but the finals in Malmö, Sweden. All right, cool. You got revenge against Mad Lions after what happened in 2021 spring split. Marvelous. Absolutely marvelous. Then, of course, you lost to G2. Fine. Loses to G2. 3-0. It's not the worst thing in the world. Now we have to make an incredible lower bracket run. They beat... Okay. Actually, that... Let me just retrace my steps. That loss to G2 means that they are the third team in the bracket, which means they are waiting who will meet in the lower bracket finals in Sweden to determine who will play G2. That team was Fnatic. Now, at the time, a little LEC history to you all. No team has ever beaten both Fnatic and G2 and ever went on to win LEC. Few teams have done it, but they did it in like one part of the bracket or another bracket. No, beating both Fnatic and G2. It's like the equivalent of Indiana winning against Ohio State, Alabama, Oregon, and Miami. Which, by the way, I'm recording this 11/18, and I still cannot believe it that Indiana Hoosiers are the national champions of football in the year of our Lord 2026. What the actual frick? I still cannot believe it. But I digress. Fnatic and G2 are like the gods of LEC. And yes, while G2 and Fnatic have like down years, and mostly Fnatic, of course, they are still the kings of LEC. If you get past them and actually win the whole thing, well, you are considered god tier, of course. S level rank, solo hunting kind of god, of course. And oh my goodness, they did. And they did it on the back of Comp. Comp de Dia, they said, of course, and he seized the day like no other. It was an incredible performance against Fnatic. 3-1 against Fnatic, and he was the MVP of that thing. The crowd was wild, of course, but not as wild as he pulled off a pentakill in the very first game of the series with Sivir, and the crowd erupts because we're in Sweden, baby, and this is the second time that G2 got pentakill in Sweden. Of course, Reckless, a Swedish boy, by the way, actually did it first. And G2 never recover. Well, some of it was the fact that there's a whole Carlos Tate, Carlos Tate, Carlos situation. No, Andrew Tate and the Carlos situation kind of wrecked G2. I'm not going to go through that kind of can of worms, of course. Whether it was a situation that involved Carlos that wrecked G2 or the fact that Rogue were playing better, Rogue were deserved winners. Rogue were absolutely deserved winners of this LEC title and the absolute joy on their faces. And look at this trophy celebration. It was years of pain and suffering and misery. Oldawame, the guy who has gone through so much over his career, finally become LEC champion. Larssen become LEC champion. Malrang LEC champion. I mean, who would have thought that? Trimby LEC champion, Comp LEC champion, Larssen being loyal to this entire team throughout the very first few years in their down, but actually no, he was there when Rogue was in a bad state and he came in for the academy and he's going through year after year after year, winning the whole thing and all this kind of stuff. And for him to win an LEC champion in front of his friends and family and all those members in Malmo, Sweden, holy cow, Rogue Nation has finally arrived. And no, I'm not talking about a Tom Cruise movie, by the way. This is literally peak Rogue, ladies and gentlemen. We have witnessed peak Rogue at a marvelous time. But sadly, all good things must come to an end. And this image is the last ever great thing about Rogue in their lifetimes. But first, Worlds 2022 Worlds in North America. Group C, they were drawn to DRX, Top Esports, and VCS dominant team Levi and Gam. They smoked the whole thing 4-0, but they needed some help to make sure they can make it to the playoffs. And wait 1 second. Hello? Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh no, I'm watching Gam versus Top Esports at the time. Oh, okay. What do you want me to do? You want me to You want me to apply a bug in one of the items, of course, in order for Top Esports to lose so that we can qualify for the playoffs? I am not sure we can do that. I mean, our team got bugged themselves by having to play Orianna, and there was a lot of bugs in that the entire world thing. I'm not sure we can do that. That kind of feels like cheating. Oh wait, Top Esports are chokers in many ways. Say less. All right, done. You can apply the bug now. Oh yeah. And Gam is just walking down mid, and we won the game, and we qualified for the Worlds quarterfinals actually. All right, thank you. Send me my PayPal. All right, so that's our road make the playoffs, of course. And yes, the Top Esports bug did not help matters, of course. But they qualified for quarterfinals. Drop off, of course, lost 2 games in a row. But at least they make it to the quarterfinals for the first time, and their opponent was JDG. Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah. Despite Larssen's efforts and Malorang's, they got swept by JDG. And they watched the team that are in the group Won the freaking championship. they DRX still won Worlds. It's been 4 years. I still can't believe DRX won Worlds. I can't believe it. But but I mentioned that this is the end of the good times for Rogue because October 6th, around that time, post Worlds, or kind of like around where Worlds take place, there was some rumblings, of course. Ibai Lenos and Gerard Piqué, one a co-streamer, the other a footballing great from Barcelona, decided that, hey guys, we need to get into this esports business, but I don't know how we can do that. How about we form a team and decided to pair up with another team and decided to absorb all the players and become our own team? And that is where the Koi partnership take place. October 6, 2022 is literally where the slow decay and death of Rogue began. With a partnership with Rogue that make them the main team for 2023. So now Rogue, the team that won LEC title in 2022 in Sweden, are now officially Koi. They went from Polish dogs to Ibai's dogs. And I will love to tell you about the history of Koi, of course, but I decided A, Koi are still in great shape right now, and B, it's a Rogue episode. We're talking about mostly Rogue. And the 2023 was forgettable, to be honest. Yeah, they kept the whole team, great, but the problem is that once you deal with a guy who knows about co-streaming rather than making a team, of course, the whole thing falls apart. All the structure, all the investment, all the good athletes that put money on this thing cannot save you crap. And your team went on an absolute nosedive. Yeah, you make 4 and 5s and make it the playoffs most of the time, but that was the LEC decided to make 8 teams in the playoffs rather than have the usual 6. And you were crap in all of them. All of them. You went from LEC champions to chumps within the space of a year. But the good news is you're gonna get it back. November 2020, November 22nd, 2023, Infinite Reality bought back the name, and now they decided to become Rogue again. Well, that and the Koi split was pretty much bad. And also it kind of involved their Call of Duty team, of course, the London Ravens, of course, in the Call of Duty. But this is not a Call of Duty channel. This is a League Sports channel, of course. And they decided that in 2024, Rogue are going to be back in the LEC fully fledged. And now we are back. But unfortunately, the name alone is the only good thing to talk about Rogue in the post-era days. The damage was already done. But the moment that Ibai, Lanos, and Gerard Piqué decided to join forces with Rogue was probably the day that Rogue fell off the map. Like 2023 was where the teetering began. This is where they fell off the cliff. But first, Marcoon and Zoles decided to join the team. Shigenda, Marcoon, Larson, Comp, and Zoles come in the team. Yes, Odawame is gone. Inspired went off. Trimby is gone to BDS, of course. Then went to South America. And then back to Europe. So you only got Larson and Comp and N rated as assistant coach. What can go wrong? Well, everything. Finished 2-7, bottom of the table with KC, but that was Carmen Corp trying to get their feet under the water in the LEC, although you can say that the French fans demanded more, but it is what it is. And then Finn decided to rejoin. The glory days are back, ladies and gentlemen. We got Finn, Marcoon, Larson, Comp, and Zoles. We'll be back like 2019, baby. Okay. Good news, 3-6, not bad. Bad news is you can't even make the playoffs. Like, remember, this was an 18 playoffs. You can't even make past the 8. You can't even make the 8. Lord almighty, this is brutal. Okay, but we kept the lineup. Maybe we improved. No, you're 2-7. You're 2-7 and our bottom. This team went from winning LEC in 2021 with the Rogue name, of course, to having been partnered with Koi, be bad, get their name back, and now fell off the map. Like, literally fell off the map. So November 22nd of 2023, and so from November 22nd to December 13 of 2024, some really hard changes need to be made. Marcoon, Comp, Solis, Singenda, and Rated, and Finn all decided to leave. And for the LEC 2025 winter split, of course, they got Adam, Malrang, Larson, Patrick, and Execute, which is formerly Jang Hood, who, by the way, played in LCK, of course, but formerly of Jang Hu from Astralis, who was Rookie of the Year in 2022. To be brutally honest to him, I don't think he was any good. I don't think no one in that Rogue team in that 2025 year was no good. They went 1-8 and being bottom. But hey, at least you got Yankos, who is a co-streamer. But Yankos, great. And they did improve by 1 win, 2-7. But yeah, the damage was already done. And unfortunately, Rogue does not have the fans, the investors, because esports is stupid sometimes, and the wins and the trophies to make themselves up. It's kind of like the FPX episode that I mentioned, of course. The downfall began literally in 2021 when they lost in Worlds, and the crash out literally go down. Kind of like when Man United lost Sir Alex Ferguson and everything went to crap for Man United. Just like that. It's the same thing with Rogue, except of course they were doing well at Worlds. This was during at Worlds, and then for the news to drop, like the LTA decided to take over while Worlds take place. It's kind of like an anvil in a head. Like, Jesus, you can't even recover from that. And while you got the name, great, the damage was done. And unfortunately for Rogue, it is time for them to move on. The nation has seen enough. It is eroded. They cannot win matches. They're looking stale. They went from horribly bad to great to now back to be horribly bad. And unfortunately for Rogue, they have to cut their losses. So on June 13th, 2025, Na'Vi decided to enter the LEC in that summer split. They didn't even wait until the year is over. They decided, okay, guys, put us out of our misery, get us out. We don't want to do this anymore. And Na'Vi, the mighty CSGO champions, of course, two-time major champion in CSGO, of course, decided to take their spot. And of course, they're competing in the summer season of LEC, which, by the way, spoiler alert, they were awful. And Freddy122 and Larson, the only two members from that incredible Rogue team back then, actually Rogue, Koi, Na'Vi, whichever name you call it, they left. And thus end the Rogue Nation. And thus end Rogue completely. Also, you could say that Napster, one of the major music services at the time, were involved in that deal because, of course, they were owned by Infinity Reality. But let's not talk about that. So, Rogue's record in League of Legends is 142 and 149, which is 49% win rate. Now, the cause of death is literally Ibai, Lanos, and Koi. Because let's be brutally honest, and this is not against Ibai or all the Koi fans, but your involvement in League of Legends kind of killed Rogue. Because Rogue before you guys. In fact, let me just do something real quick. Let me just give you something. Let's just look at my beautiful, beautiful chart. So I have pre-Koi before the investment and post-Koi, which is after the investment. So if you look at the records, by the way, the Rogue have pretty awful starts in 3 seasons, but they kind of improved. And they were like 13 wins, 14 wins, 11 wins. Basically 10 plus wins in the last 5 splits. And they have an 83 and 61 record in best of ones, which is 80%. And placements are kind of like 3.6, which is the average placement of all their positions throughout the entire time pre-Rogue. In the playoffs, they have 32, 39, and 42, but an LEC champion. This is the only time they get like 9 wins, but that was when the playoffs were kind of stupid and large and in charge. But either way, it doesn't matter. They made a few international appearances. They went 10-11 in international appearances, but 48%. But they did make it to a quarterfinals and have 7 wins. So pre-Koi, they were incredible. Say it for like the one LEC split that were awful and new team, of course, but they developed, they got stability, they got a system, they got a head coach, they build and develop players and went on to have great success, of course, onwards. They finally win LEC. Everything was great. And then when Ibai bought the team, merged, suck ass, then they got it back. Look at the results. Yes, short sample size, and yes, the formats were different. But 10 wins. out of 35. 10 and 35 with a 22% win rate. Average positions is 9.6. Like a 6 position drop off. No playoffs, no natural appearances, lack of fans, lack of caring, lack of investments, and they died. Pretty horribly. Not with a whimper, not with a pain, but with a whimper. And yeah, I would like to read something from the interview that they did, of course, about the legacy and all this kind of stuff. It said, despite the recent turmoil, Rogue's legacy remains significant within the European scene, comp emphasizing enduring impact. They started tough in 2019, but quickly became one of the most consistent teams qualified for Worlds multiple times. Our 2022 title, especially being G2 in the final, is iconic. While recent years were difficult, many remember the strong impact Rogue had at their best. And Hans Sommer, of course, emotionally reflects on the time at a Rogue. I have so many memories from dominating the league to traveling the world at Worlds in China, which is 2020, and Iceland in 2021. Even losing the 2021 final was a powerful emotional moment. Larson, who was by the team, of course, said, I don't think people will copy the Rogue self in 2020 to 2022 much anymore. We had different styles each year, mostly focusing on winning lanes and controlled macro. The team's identity was always evolving. Yeah, and of course, they all talk about, like, joining Na'Vi into that chapter, but then again, it hurts. And one last piece of code, Rogue's journey through the LEC was defined by perseverance and moments of brilliance. From humble beginnings to the glory of lifting the trophy, the organization helped define a generation of new European esports talent and competitive standards, before slowly falling and losing all of its brilliance in 2023. The departure is not just an end, but a passing of the torch to a new contender ready to write the next chapter in League of Legends history. And now we get it from both Koi and Matt, Casey and Koi. Which, by the way, EBA finally decided to actually make investment in the esports team and would you know, thrive. And of course, won multiple LEC titles, make it to Worlds a couple of times, and now they become an established team with a rabid fan base. But the point remains that, the horrible inconsistencies at the end was horrible. And while I can say I blame it on one person to hold that thing, I'm like, look at results, look at all these things, and yeah, you can just point the finger at one person. But looking at the story, it's just so incredible. I remember this Rogue team so well. I was watching a lot of LEC back then. I'm not used to watching LEC at the time because watching like an hour or two, maybe fall asleep. Of course, I have an attention span of a mouse. That's what happens when you're close to 30. But to see this Rogue team being so good for so long in those periods and actually doing so well, and for it to fall off completely, yeah, it goes to show you that esports, it's not a forever thing. It can be taken away from you so quick and so timely that if you can't just enjoy the little moments, then it all fades away. And I was watching, by the way, the LEC finals at the time. Seeing all these guys actually lift in the trophy, it makes my heart so good. Because, of course, at the time, everybody hated the G2 Fnatic dominating trophies, and it was boring at the time. But seeing them winning that trophy in front of fans, not in a COVID bubble, of course, was pretty much the most cherished moment in all of their lives. And for Rogue's lives as well. And while the downfall was brutal and swift, we will never forget the moments they have. All the fun stuff they did, all the worlds they made it, all the great macro, all the choking, all those kind of stuff. We'll never forget them. And that's what makes this episode so special, is that this Rogue team put themselves into the echelons of League of Legends forever, regardless of what happens. And I hope these players will remember that forever. So anyways, thank you all for watching this whole thing. We have made it to about almost 50 minutes for this. I talk a lot. So anyways, like, comment, subscribe for this whole thing. We will see you next week for another episode of Death of a Team. Enjoy your week. And I'll catch you on the flip side.